The Bear in Global Channel. Russian army suffered a record number of casualties. The intensity of the war on the Eastern Front has increased like never before. Ukrainian army continued its attacks throughout the day. After the attacks in the Black Sea, Moscow experienced a second shock. Russian troops also began to flee on the Eastern Front. Ukrainian forces took control of a large area, creating a long corridor. Russian troops in the area were surrounded. A big surprise was organized for Russian soldiers who came to the front with mobilization. Kiev is sending new elite troops to the Eastern Front. Ukraine's aim is to gain full control on the Eastern Front. The Russian side has not yet made a statement. The largest Russian defense line in the region was broken. Almost all of the besieged Russian soldiers were neutralized. One Russian military unit surrendered. Ukraine's pressure has increased considerably in Donetsk, which is located on the Eastern Front. Artillery units are on duty 24 hours a day, helping Ukrainian armed forces, especially around Bakhmut, where the heaviest clashes have taken place recently, and on the Donetsk front, which is trying to push back Russian army units in general. The artillery battery of the 53rd Mechanized Brigade of Ukrainian Army, named after Prince Volodymyr Monomakh, fires heavily at the targets of Russian forces, like other artillery units in the region. 53rd Mechanized Brigade and the Ukrainian infantry started the operation simultaneously in the morning. As a result of the operation of the 53rd Mechanized Brigade and Ukrainian infantry, 300 Russian soldiers in the Russian positions were neutralized. It was announced that 60 Russian soldiers were wounded. Shortly after the statements made, it was stated that 50 more Russian soldiers were neutralized as a result of the operations in Cherven-Popivka. Russian armies suffered the greatest losses of recent times. Russian troops, who suffered great losses in this process, began to flee from the front. The morale of the newly arrived Russian soldiers is said to be quite low. The situation in the Volyn and Polisk directions has not changed significantly. Belarus continues to support the armed aggression of the Russian Federation. The threat of missile attack and the use of assault UAVs continues. Russian army began to open fire on Ukrainian side from the territory of Belarus. At the moment, the most important point of the front line can be considered Bakhmut. After Ukraine's capture of Bakhmut, Russian forces started counterattacks again. Russian air defense units in Bakhmut destroyed 225 Russian warplanes, one Mi-8 helicopter and one drone. In addition, the attacks of Ukrainian artillery continued during the day and Russian defense line was broken. The violence of the war on the territory of Ukraine has increased more than ever. In this process, problems began to arise between United States and Russia regarding nuclear weapons. The threads between the two countries were tense again. Russia's declarations of nuclear weapons were harshly retaliated by United States. Russian President Vladimir Putin has made numerous implicit threats of nuclear war since the start of the Ukraine war. But Russia's strategic nuclear exercise over the past few days was the last straw. While Russian officials are proud of their nuclear exercises, Colonel Igor Korotchenko stated that nuclear war could directly target Britain and the United States. These statements were described as nonsense by the United States. British Defense Secretary said that Russia's statements were not important. British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace said United Kingdom is a country with nuclear deterrence. In addition, British Armed Forces has a strong and well-trained army that complies with NATO standards. We do not take Russia's statements seriously. Britain is a member of NATO alliance and a country that wants peace. That's why I think Russia has more problems, he said. In addition, Russia's initiation of nuclear exercises prompted United States to take action. A harsh retaliation came from United States. As concerns grew in the West about Russia's use of nuclear weapons, Politico made an ambitious claim. According to Politico, United States has pushed forward the delivery date of nuclear weapons, which are scheduled to be sent to Europe next year. On the other hand, new military equipment began to be delivered to Ukrainian army. In this process, Ukrainian forces gained a great advantage on the southern and eastern fronts with their long-range artillery units. After the Eastern Front, an increase in the attacks of Ukrainian artillery units was observed in the south. Ukraine now has an advantage in both firing range and high-precision missiles and artillery shells that Russia largely lacks. Ukrainian soldiers are destroying millions of dollars worth of Russian armored vehicles with the help of their own cheap aircraft, as well as more advanced drones and other weapons supplied by the United States and its allies. It is noted that the increasing advantage of the Ukrainian artillery units on the southern front provided a rapid advance in the south in the direction of Kherson. It is recorded that in the Donetsk region, Russia fired about 10 artillery shells for each Ukrainian shell in the summer, while Ukraine inside in Kherson region currently fired about the same number of shells. In other words, the advantage situation completely passed into the hands of Ukrainian army. Russian army began to pay the price of random attacks. Long-range artillery continues to conduct successful operations, but is more accurate thanks to Western-supplied satellite-guided missiles and artillery shells. On the other hand, there is a big ammunition problem in Russian army. As it is known, weapons supplied to Russia from Iran have been on the agenda for a long time. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba stated that he made contact with the Iranian Foreign Minister Hussein Amir Abdollahian for the first time. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba announced that he asked Iran to stop arms supplies to Russia. Kuleba had previously submitted a proposal to President Zelensky to terminate diplomatic relations with Iran due to Russia's use of Iranian-made drones on Ukrainian territory. Although Iran has repeatedly denied it, the White House has declared that Iran is not telling the truth. If Iran withdraws its support from Russia, Moscow may face serious difficulties during the war. The country it supports is very few. On top of that, countries where it rarely receives support may be their only recourse to withdraw. This will lead to a major defeat for Russia. The number of supports coming to Russia began to decrease. But when we look at Ukrainian side, it is seen that new shipments are made. In the process, a battalion of M55's tanks arrived in Ukraine from Slovenia. These tanks are considered equivalent to Soviet T-55 tanks, which began operating in 1958, but had greater capabilities and improved protection. During the night, 28 M55 tanks arrived in Ukraine by trains via Eastern Europe. By rather large train delivered a large number of military equipment, armored vehicles and tanks to Ukrainian army. In this process, Ukrainian forces continue to receive support from many NATO and European countries. Sanctions against Russia and support sent to Ukraine completely changed the course of the war. Russian economy collapsed due to an ongoing war and losses. The damage to Russia's Black Sea Fleet in the morning will greatly affect the Russian economy. Because the reproduction of such large and advanced military equipment is very costly, difficult, and long-term. It will take 10 years for Russia to regain its former military inventory capacity. In addition, Russia's difficulties in energy sales will cause this process to prolong considerably, because Russia was getting its biggest income from energy sales to Europe. However, relations between Europe and Russia were completely broken. Tensions between East and West are increasing day by day. We'll see what happens in the coming days. We have come to the end of another video. You can like the video to support us. By subscribing, you can easily follow new videos. I wish you all happy days. See you.